Hi listeners, Jason here. We're on the countdown to PHSCon in Sydney on 19th and 20th of June this year. It is the community event of the year for those in HR and safety who are progressing evidence-based practice for workplace mental health. Whether you're responsible for compliance to psychosocial safety regulations or driving your respect at work strategy, PHSCon is the place to be. The speaker lineup is unparalleled, with global thought leaders such as Adam Grant and Professor Rob Reiner participating. There's 8 international speakers presenting in person, 6 industry case studies from small to large organisations, and even a full 45-minute comedy set from Jimmy Reese to lead us into networking drinks. Now, if that's not enough, get hands-on learning from a choice of 4 pre-conference masterclasses facilitated by experts from Australia, the UK, and Canada. This will be the largest gathering ever on the topic in Australia, so get your bums along, make a few new friends, and soak in the latest thinking and application of psychosocial safety. Find out more at www.phscon.com. Now, on to this episode.
From Flourish DX, this is the Psych Health and Safety Podcast. With workplace mental health becoming a safety prerogative, this is the source of information on psychological injury prevention and health promotion.
Hi, and welcome to the Psych Health and Safety Podcast. My name is Jason Banshee, and I'm one of the hosts of the show. The aim of the podcast is to rapidly increase the knowledge and application of psychological health and safety in workplaces worldwide. To help with this, we have regular guests from around the world who are leading the way in this important area. But before I introduce our guest and topic for today, allow me to introduce my co-host, Joelle Mitchell. How are you today, Joelle?
I am looking forward to the Easter break, Jason.
Me too. I'm struggling to talk right now. It's a sign that I might need to take a day or two off. So,
but are you gonna?
Well, there's mandated public holidays, right? So,
I'm
going to take some time out, catch up with some friends.
Good.
Probably eat too much, drink too much. The usual.
All right. Well, good to hear about the taking some time out.
Yeah. And you're taking the extra few days off and having quite a long break, aren't you?
Like most of Australia, I'm taking 3 days of annual leave for a 10-day break.
It's pretty handy. And what are your plans?
I'm going to Bali.
Nice.
Yes.
And where are you staying so the listeners know where to go and see you?
I suspect that this episode will not air before my trip. So for many reasons, I don't feel the need to share that information.
No, fair enough.
Thanks for being a creep.
So you're looking forward to it though?
Yes, I am. Yep.
Yeah, and you're taking the hubby and Ronan over with you?
Yes, going as a family. So Ronan, we went to Singapore after Christmas, and this will be a different kind of Southeast Asia than Singapore for Ronan, so we'll see how he goes.
Yeah, it must be nice, all these international trips.
Well, I used to do kind of twice a year before COVID, so just getting back to my usual pattern.
Yeah, nice. No, it's good for you out here.
It is.
Yeah, nice. Well, look, we actually have an international guest on today.
We sure do.
So we should probably introduce him in because it is quite early his time and he probably wants to get on with his day. So...
what a way to start, though.
Oh, what a great way to start. How could you imagine a better way to start?
No.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, he is an advocate for the use of good-natured comedy in the workplace to improve team collaboration and psychological safety. His strategy teaches the ingredients that go into humour and encourages employees to practice. He is the founder of MyBeast, not Mr. Beast.
Not Mr. Beast.
Yeah,
no.
I was quite excited when I saw we were going to be interviewing Mr. Beast. No, MyBeast. But welcome to the podcast, Jason Rawding.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Yes, I'm aware that there's a way more famous Mr. Beast in the world, but hopefully MyBeast sounds a little bit different to Mr. Beast. But yeah, thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah, it's probably just a sign of my age and my eyesight going, Jason, when I had a quick look at the agenda and I was like, what? Oh no, MyBeast. So I wasn't disappointed at all. I was actually very happy. Anyhow, I'm sure we're going to have a great conversation because humour is one of the things that we like to practice at Flourish TX.
It's a strong character strength across many of the team here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good.
So to get us started, Jason, what podcast do you like to listen to?
So even though we're going to be talking about humour and comedy, I think my most listened to podcast is like the most unfunny topic you could think of. But I like this podcast called Real Dictators, which is about famous dictators from history. I do like history. So that's a good one. I like Eckhart Tolle, Spiritual Teachings podcast. And I also listen to some news podcasts, but I've been kind of avoiding them recently because the news seems to be a bit more stressful than it's worth listening to. So
Yeah, I think that's fair.
yeah, it kind of comes in waves for me. I don't know. Sometimes I kind of get, enjoy watching the news, listening to it, but then other times I just like have to avoid it. But yeah, those are the kind of three main podcasts that I'm listening to.
Well, if you do humour for work, then it probably makes sense to have some balance in other areas.
I like watching a lot of the level of creativity and humor that content creators are putting out on Instagram and YouTube is just like sensational. So I often find that just that kind of content is the funniest. And there are a few comedians that I like, but I think some of the sort of lesser known content creators are the funniest, I think, for me.
Oh, we'll have to get some recommendations later for who we should be following.
Yeah, I can send you some.
Can you tell us about your professional career, please?
Yeah, so my career, I'd say it's a bit varied. So I started off in IT. I graduated in IT, worked in IT for a bit in London before I moved out to Colombia, where I taught English in Bogota for a couple of years and kind of had lots of adventures in Latin America. I then came back to the UK, worked in a pub for a while, before I then got a job working in sales for a tech company. And then in the last 2 years or so, I've been working on MyBeast. So even though there's been lots of, kind of a variety of jobs and kind of different industries, a constant has always been humor. I've always enjoyed incorporating humor, not only just having a laugh with colleagues, but literally incorporating humor into presentations or emails, and taking that bit of a risk, because at work, if you're sending an email to someone in a professional setting, it can feel a little bit risky, but I have enjoyed kind of taking that risk and incorporating humor. So yeah, bit of a varied career. You were smiling there, looked at each other. Is that what you two a fan of, taking the risk and adding any humor?
Well, I've been known for my high risk tolerance, so I was just thinking that might explain why I'm willing to take a risk on some things, and they don't always pan out.
Indeed.
But I'm willing to put myself out there.
That's sure. Good, Jason. Good.
Yeah, and I've been taught more discretion, I guess, over the years. I've had to tamp down things, but yeah, it's more maturing.
Ree's really been good at holding you accountable for your behaviour.
I'm very, very good. Yeah. Nothing like being cancelled 5 minutes into the workday to change your behaviour.
Indeed.
Getting sent home at 9:05.
Yeah, I should probably do that. Yeah, just if I get cancelled, just walk out.
Just go home.
Go home.
That's it. No friends for you today.
Really interesting background. So you stole a bunch of jobs from, or at least one job from an Australian, I guess, working in a bar in the UK. I thought that's just all Aussies doing that.
Yeah, so it was a pub in near Tower Bridge in Bermondsey in London. I can't remember if there's many Aussies. I think there's lots of Aussies in kind of the Clapham area, isn't there, of London? So, but yeah, I used to live in Clapham, and there was definitely a lot of Australians in that area. And there's another area as well, like, is it near Wimbledon? But yeah, lots of Aussies around there.
Yeah, no, they're all they're all over.
All over the place.
Yeah. But look, tell us about your company then, MyBeast. What is it that you do, and how do you go about it?
Yeah, so to describe MyBeast, so MyBeast is an employee development strategy for incorporating more humor and comedy in the workplace. So it consists of kind of workshops and training to teach people about different types of humor, how they can explore and leverage their own sense of humor, and storytelling. sharing comedic stories to connect with people across an organization, across departments, and across seniority levels. So does that make? It's a slightly unusual business, so I've kind of worked on the description a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. And, there are, academics that work in this space, like I'm thinking Arnold Backer and playful work design is probably an extension from that. How do you incorporate, play or humor into work, right? So, no, it makes perfect sense. But what takes someone who graduated in IT, traveled the world, taught English, worked in a pub, sold IT, to found a company teaching people how to use humor in the workplace?
So I had the idea about 9 years ago, and it came to me in quite a special way. I would say it's quite a profound moment in my life. I had come back from being abroad in Latin America and was living with my mum. A bit of a crossroads, deciding what to do with my life. And I'd recently discovered Eckhart Tolle and meditation and being present. So instead of like applying for jobs, because I really didn't know what to do, I was like really, a bit undecided. I just started to sort of meditate and, enjoy living at home, being present, going for long walks. And after about 2 weeks of this, all the while kind of pondering what I wanted to do, with my life, just kind of with no stress or pressure on myself. And then after about 2 weeks, I went to bed one evening, but felt like totally wide awake and like really energized and electric. It's like electric feeling. And I laid in my bed feeling like something was about to happen. And this idea for MyBeast came completely out of nowhere and like popped into my head. And it was, yes, sort of this image in my mind of beast sharing. So a bit, it's probably helpful to explain what a beast is, because that's at the heart of this of the strategy. So a beast is an unlucky and absurd experience you later laugh about. So these are you could use the term and say, I had a complete beast on the way to the airport, for example. And it's those experiences. It's an unlucky moment, could be slightly awkward or embarrassing at the time, but they make for great stories. And yeah, this idea popped into my head, completely organic. I'd never considered anything like that before. And it was almost like a physical reaction to the idea. My heart was racing and it was just really exciting. So I wrote the idea down. And but then it took me years to kind of figure out how to apply it, because, um, I encouraged friends to share stories, but kind of doing that in a sort of organized way, or uploading stories to a website or something, didn't really kind of mean much at the time, because we would just share stories in the pub. I hosted online events for people to join and share stories. And it wasn't until lockdown, during COVID, when we did this as a team. We all shared stories like over Zoom. And it was like one of the best team building activities we did. It was amazing. I can still remember the stories that my colleagues shared. And then from there, I realized that, well, maybe I could apply this idea to organizations. And I started doing a lot of research into humor in the workplace, psychological safety, and of course, vulnerability. One thing that I thought was the biggest kind of why I'd never considered doing this at work was this sort of, sharing these stories is a little bit uncomfortable, or it's a little bit, can make you feel a little bit embarrassed. But when I discovered Brené Brown and realized that not only, well, firstly, it's called vulnerability. I didn't even know that that's what that was called. Um, Not only is vulnerability essential in human connections, it's possibly lacking in the workplace. So that really kind of made me feel a lot more ambitious, that this could really work in the workplace. And so, yeah, that's what has led me to today. And now I run workshops with teams, um, with kind of employee engagement organizations, or any team really, because it's, humor can be valuable for any team, whether it's leadership, sales, marketing. I even had a call with a psychologist who works in the prison service recently, and he was interested in how humor can help prisoners who are about to be released um, use effective humor skills when they go back into work and society. So we haven't done any workshops there yet, but that's a really exciting opportunity that we're going to kind of look at towards the end of April and May. So yeah, that's
So is that the primary thing then you do with workplaces and teams, like running workshops?
So the primary thing is running workshops, teaching people about humor, different humor types, and training. And then there's the story sharing aspect, people sharing comedic stories. The training part is important because there are sort of these three main barriers to incorporating humor at work. Firstly, there's this idea of professionalism, this kind of outdated concept that we need to we need to appear successful, we need to project a successful image of ourselves at work. And I saw a report from
professionalism was outdated, Joelle.
You did, yes.
Yeah. So I'm with you. Outdated.
Okay.
Yep.
Noted.
Is Joelle the really professional one, and Jason, you're a bit more relaxed? No, I'm
to
joking.
call me the professional one just tells you how. If I'm the high bar, that's just terrible.
I'm hearing that Jason is not just funny, but he's also perceptive. And then clearly I'm the better one. That's what he's.
You're the better one.
I'm paraphrasing what he said.
Because I'm more professional.
Yeah.
Right.
It's outdated.
Okay.
It's had its time.
Sure. All right.
It had a good run.
It's an interesting way to interpret that, but cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like math. Everyone can have an opinion.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Jason,
Jason.
sorry. Yeah. So professionalism is the first thing. It is outdated. That's what I heard. And Jason is better than Joelle. Is what.
Okay.
Yeah. Proceed.
Carry on.
Sorry, Jason.
No, I can. It's this is a concept that is changing, right? It's not this. There's the awareness about being more human in the workplace is changing, but especially for some industries or some like larger organizations, there's still this kind of idea that we need to be professional. And a report from Deloitte said that 61% of people feel that they need to hide aspects of themselves or be a bit different to be professional at work.
Yeah, I am. I got to say, I am feeling a bit self-conscious. I forgot to wear pants today, so I am sharing probably too much of myself with the camera.
Just for listeners who are not watching on the video feed, Jason does have shorts on, so he's not here in his underwear. He's got shorts on. He's wearing appropriate clothing for general being out in public purposes.
Yeah.
He's just got his knees showing.
Well, maybe the translation as well is a bit different because in the UK, pants are like underwear. So it's nice for you to let
Jason's wearing short trousers.
Short trousers. That show off his knee. Yeah, but I totally get it, right? Because expectations or what is considered normal during COVID times obviously changed a lot, right? I remember still that, it was a reporter overseas, and he was on like a Zoom type call. It was
the naked kid came dancing through the background,
and then like the mum or whoever came in and grabbed the kid and was like really embarrassed and all the rest. And that just seems to be something that happens more and more now, where kids just walk in or cats walk across computer screens and all the rest. And it's just a normal part of life. People don't put on a that fake self or like, that professional self. They're willing to accept that we're all humans and sometimes being a human is messy and we've got, things that happen in the background.
Yeah, people are able to be a bit more authentic. And yeah, as you said, that messy part, mistakes, failures, we know that's a crucial part of psychological safety, being able to talk about, failure and mistakes and when things don't go wrong. So yeah, there's the professionalism. There's also this aspect of this kind of fear of failure. I've noticed that people put an awful lot of pressure on themselves to be funny. And if it doesn't come naturally to them, obviously you two, have a good relationship, enjoy having a laugh. But a lot of people feel pressure to be funny, and it can put them off. Sometimes at the beginning of my workshops, people look terrified because they associate comedy and humor with being humiliated. So there's that. They associate humor with being humiliated, but also this sort of, am I going to be put on the spot? Am I going to be funny enough? But slowly, as they kind of learn about humor and see humor as being more creative instead of funny, they kind of open up and really kind of enjoy humor a bit more. So that's one aspect. I kind of encourage people to look at humor as being creative as opposed to being funny. So you can create humor instead of being funny. So there's this that fear of failure.
Is there any sense in being a volume shooter? Like, so it's a basketball analogy, right? Yeah, volume shooter. Yeah. So they score a lot of points because they put a lot of shots up. Right.
So what you're suggesting is just spew out as much nonsense as you can and hope that some of it lands?
Yeah, right. Like,
that wouldn't be annoying at all.
Yeah. So maybe 1 out of 10 things land, but at least you gave it a shot and you made someone laugh.
Over to the expert for the answer to that one.
Yeah. So
I don't know. I mean, you could do that. I mean,
risky strategy.
It is a little bit risky, I would say. Yeah. I mean, but the thing, humor's relational, so you're going to see what reaction you're getting, and if people aren't responding, puns, for example. If you do, I had my sister-in-law's ex was just like relentless with his puns, just like, and it would even try and change the conversation so he could get a pun in. So you've got to kind of read the room a little bit, I guess. But I'm all for creating more humor. So I'm all for creating more humor. So I wouldn't say dial it down. I would say keep going and yeah.
Oh boy.
Don't dial it down. I've got to start writing notes. Professionalism outdated.
Professionalism's out. Don't dial it down.
Yeah, don't dial it down.
These are Jason's key takeaways.
Yeah. Do you need more psych health and safety in your life? Then head over to the Flourish DX Academy for several free on-demand e-learning courses. If you're an internal professional, follow Flourish DX on Eventbrite to register for any of our free fortnightly interactive webinars. Our flagship professional practice program is also exclusively available for internal professionals. The 12-week course blends theory, applied practice, and interaction with other professionals through live lectures and a monthly community of practice session. Find out more about all these learning opportunities or inquire about a bespoke in-house training at the Flourish DX Academy. www.45003.org. Now back to this episode. Yeah, there is this idea of the shooter's conscience as well when it comes to basketball. So if you're a shooter and a volume shooter, it doesn't matter if you're 0 from 10 or 10 from 10, the shot's got to go up. So I think the same could apply to humour. Doesn't matter if the last 10 jokes have failed, keep going. Read the room a little bit, but you got to keep you learn best, I think, by doing.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's what stand-up comedians do, right? They go to open mic nights and they fail and fail and fail until they
100%.
Find the thing that works. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
100%.
I wouldn't treat us like an open mic audience though, Jason. I know that we're paid to be here, but there's limits.
It's kind of like the opposite, like open mic, you pay to be there.
That's true. Yes, and people opt in.
It's more like you guys are a focus group and I'm like paying you to attend and see what lands, what doesn't.
Sure.
Rate my performance.
I'll have to stick a time writing code in for that.
Yeah, you do. Anyway, we're up to 2. Professionalism.
I did, by the way, I gave a talk a couple of weeks ago at this company, and I got the same question from this girl who she said, what if I use humor too much? So it's interesting that people often think they may be using it too much, but I also gave her the same answer to you, and I encouraged her just to keep going.
There is actually in strengths research the idea of overusing a strength. So there may be some truth to that.
Look, definitely time and place.
Yeah.
Someone coming and telling you that their parent has a terminal illness is probably not a great time to crack a joke.
Sure.
Depending on your relationship with the person and what you know about their sense of humour, obviously.
Yeah. No, I take your point.
Yeah.
And I won't do it again.
You're looking a bit guilty there. You look like you actually did that.
All right. So professionalism.
Yeah.
What was the next one? Risk.
Fear of failure.
Fear of failure.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Don't dial it back.
Don't dial it back. As well, before I go on to the third one, the humour that I'm encouraging people to incorporate as well, it's not just the sort of the spontaneous laughter you have with colleagues. It's more in your marketing, in your sales, in your leadership style or internal comms. It's like incorporating humour into the work itself. So yeah. So the third one is arguably the biggest one, which is inclusion. This whole idea of getting HR involved. If you say the wrong thing, say something that's inappropriate, this sort of risky aspect of humour, and you don't want to upset people. Yeah, so that's kind of that other sort of barrier. But you can overcome. Sorry, you're going to say something, Jason?
Yeah. Our HR actually quit.
When we say that, this was like, we're a small business, so many of us wear multiple hats, and the person who was wearing the HR hat decided that they weren't going to wear the HR hat anymore.
Because
Too many
they didn't want to be.
jokes.
Yeah,
they
didn't want to be the Debbie Downer,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
No, genuinely.
Yep.
Yeah, he still performs the HR function, but he refuses to
Call it that. Yeah.
Yeah. And he refuses to be the person to kind of like tell people to knock it off.
Yeah.
Because he wants to be the buzzkill.
That's what we've got Ree for.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she cancels people if it crosses a line. Yeah, it's happening less frequently these days.
It is, because you're learning.
Yeah, it's learning.
How many people are there at your organisation?
There's about 20 or so across Australia, but in the main office we've got about a dozen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's still very much the sort of the tribe sort of feel to the organisation. Nice.
That's right. And, some people have worked out, hey, they get a lot more done when they're working from home, even if they have the option to work into the office. So generally, it can be a bit boisterous in the office from time to time. And if you've got deep work to do, many people elect to work from home. But that's good having that flexibility.
Yeah, nice. Makes sense. Yeah. So, yeah. So I was going to say what you can kind of overcome, or did you have another question? But I was going to say how you can overcome those three barriers, which is just by sort of learning and understanding a little bit more about humor and understanding different types of humor. So there's been various theories about throughout history about what we find funny and why. The first theory that came about was from that existed throughout history, from like Bible and in Plato throughout to like the 18th century, was the superiority theory, which states that we laugh when we have a sense of pride or superiority over someone or something. Now that's a bad general theory, but it is a type of humor, and some of that humor is inappropriate and unacceptable. You've got your sexist jokes, racist jokes. There's a sort of a victim to the humor. There is another type of this humor, though, which is acceptable in some circumstances, and the main type would be banter. So banter is defined as a friendly exchange of teasing remarks. Now, if you have a close relationship and a trusted relationship with someone, banter can actually help strengthen your relationship. But it is a little bit troublesome at work because you've got friendly teasing can dial up to bullying. It's hard to know if someone is really up for it, but typically you do have a good sense about banter because there'll be a bit of a back and forth between two people, and it can be a good way of bonding. But it's just good to have that awareness. You need to know the person probably, and you're not going to banter someone who you've just met. You're not going to banter a client probably. So it's just helpful to have an awareness about banter.
It's a very Aussie thing, banter.
Yeah, it's fascinating because it's so popular and so like pervasive throughout our culture. But I also sometimes wonder how beneficial it is. It's big. The research shows that it's less popular among younger generations now, and they prefer a slightly more kind of absurdist approach to humor. That's another type which I'll tell you about in a second. But yeah, I mean, some relationships are literally like their foundation is banter. People just constantly bantering each other, and it's the way they bond. So yeah, it does have a place. But yeah, it's also good to have an awareness. The next theory that came along was the relief theory. This came along in like the 18th century, which stated that we'll have to rid ourselves of negative energy or unwanted emotions. You could say that's in the case of when we're a bit nervous, we might laugh to when we're sort of in a nervous situation. But the nervousness um, or a sense of superiority are not prerequisites to enjoying humor. So the most modern and widely accepted theory is the incongruity theory. Um, Now, this is when something is incongruous, it is unexpected. Something is happening that doesn't match our expectations. It might make it sound a bit complicated, me adding like a theory and to this type of humor, but everybody enjoys this type of humor all the time anyway. It's just when you create a slightly absurd scenario, you're imagining like an unusual, ridiculous thing or situation, and you kind of enjoy that humor together. But there are four key ingredients that go into this type of humor, which are unexpectedness, absurdity, relevance, and non-threatening. And you can blend and practice these ingredients to incorporate this type of humor into your work, whether it's your leadership style, your comms, PR, whatever it is. You can practice being creative with this type of humor. And it's essentially about, practicing your absurdity, practicing your creative skills. So that's why it's a great way to incorporate humor, because firstly, yeah, it's non-threatening. There's no like victim or target to the humor. It's inclusive. There's obviously the relevance. It has to be relevant to the people involved. They have to be able to understand it, and that's what makes it funny. Yeah, so it's those four ingredients, and yeah, it's really great fun to see people practice and be creative with it in workshops.
Yeah. I mean, Jimmy Carr is all like his comedy is built completely on this, right? Like, let's come up with an absurd situation and then make it something completely unexpected. Like, and that I can't see his humor going down too well with HR though.
No, absolutely not. No, he's particularly really does kind of stretch it, doesn't he? But yeah, most comedians, it's literally the kind of the foundation of humor. This kind of creating these unexpected and absurd scenarios. And all our favorite like comedy sitcoms have these unexpected and absurd experiences that kind of that are funny, essentially. Um, and yeah, so that's does that do you immediately recognize that type of humor? Does me talking about the theory and the different types make it sound a bit complicated, or you just immediately recognize it?
We regularly interview career academics on this podcast, so we're okay with a little bit of complication.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. It's just because I see it everywhere. Once you have an awareness of the different types of humor, you kind of see it everywhere, and then you can start to like see where the relevance is, the absurdity. But it is very
it's a science. It's a science, right? Like, there's what makes things funny, and it's a formula. And if you can follow the formula and, like you say, apply a bit of creativity, you can be funny, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, you can literally sharpen your skills, and yeah, just when you notice what other people are saying, or when you see other funny things, you can then sort of start to build and sharpen your own humor skills. You can literally improve your humor skills. Um, yeah, so it is quite exciting as well.
So I'm interested in where you're sort of talking about building humour into kind of organisational processes or strategies and that sort of thing. Is that around kind of the way that you would communicate something? So like if you, I'm interested in understanding a bit more about how someone would go about doing that.
Yeah. So I guess it depends on the team. So a marketing team, for example, they might want to come up with absurd ideas for campaigns. And on the creative process and being innovative, it's kind of helpful to come up with an absurd ideas. Let's see how absurd we can be first, and how like ridiculous, and then you sort of it kind of helps to boost your creativity. I think it was David Ogilvy that said that the best ideas come from jokes, and I think there's a lot of research that says that playfulness helps to boost creativity. So yeah, so there's that. Any type of innovation, you can come up with absurd ideas. Um, for internal communications, incorporating a bit of humor and absurdity. I'm just partnering now with an employee engagement agency because I did some workshops with them, and they're excited and to see how it can help their corporate clients. So I'm going to be doing some more work with them. So I think in my workshops, it's about helping people or encouraging them to come up with these absurd and creative ideas, and then it probably will tone it down when you're incorporating it into campaigns and communications. But yeah, there's just so many different ways how you can add a bit of humor to help connect with people, and it's like yeah, to help kind of get your message across.
Yeah, I do enjoy a good meme, and so sometimes use that in my communications on LinkedIn. My Flourish Decks fruit bowls.
What
April
are those?
1st.
What's that?
So everyone knows, like or regular listeners of the podcast would know that we're all about how do you create work that is better for people and has a mental health benefit. And we talk about how some things just are portrayed as a mental health intervention in workplaces, like fruit bowls or yoga or bicycles and that sort of thing. And really they don't actually make a difference. And so and the one I always use is fruit bowls and yoga, right? That they're kind of like a catch-all for these things that are individual focus and really don't have a mental health benefit for population mental health. And so I, on April 1st, came up with Flourish DX fruit bowls and promoted the fact that we now have Flourish DX fruit bowls to help with workplace mental health.
Oh yeah, you send them out to companies, get them delivered to the employees, and just see the performance metrics just go like that through
That's right.
as they start eating the fruit.
Yeah, I included a bit of fake research in there, how we found that more stressed employees preferred bananas, and so we had more bananas, so you don't have to worry about changing the toxicity of your workplace. There's bananas for that. So, yeah, no, it went down well. I caught out some people thinking, what has Jason done? He's completely sold out.
What?
So,
No.
yes, but that absurdity, so people definitely knowing our normal messaging would have seen that absurdity straight away and had a good laugh, yeah.
Amazing. That is a perfect example of a good use of humor, because you're sort of exaggerating and creating some absurdity, but you're also then getting a message across as well. That's a great example where you're able to use a bit of humor whilst also getting across a serious message.
It's not my first rodeo, Jason. It's okay.
Yeah, no, that's good.
But no, yeah, we like I said, we do like having fun in the workplace, and it does extend to our social presence as well from time to time. I mean, we've got a big conference coming up, and we've got 2 comedians who we've got coming along because we want people to have a bit of a laugh while they come along.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and humor is being used a lot more on LinkedIn as well. And with marketing, have you noticed that humor is being used a lot more in corporate marketing? It's almost like these corporations are competing with each other now, and who can like add in the humor in the most effective way, which is good because it helps to create engagement and connect with people.
Well, and cut through as well, right? Because of just the volume that's available for people now. So to actually have marketing that's going to cut through all of that volume, I think the absurdity part of it probably becomes really important, because that's actually what's going to be more likely to grab someone's attention.
Yeah, totally. And it helps to kind of build an emotional engagement, emotional connection with the audience. And some of the most absurd marketing campaigns are the most successful. Do you remember that Volvo trucks advert. I don't know if you saw it in Australia with.
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yes, yeah. He did the splits. It was like he did the splits in between two Volvo trucks, and it was sort of advertising the smooth drive of these vehicles. But it's totally absurd, like really ridiculous, but really creative idea. And but it was hugely successful. Like one of them, I saw on LinkedIn, someone was saying it's like the best advert of the decade. And Curry's a company over here that sell kind of tech and white goods. They're now using employee generated content, doing like absurd memes. Their April Fool's joke was they created this machine that strips like a chicken wing. And they put like they clearly invested quite a lot of money into creating this campaign, and they're going all out on the absurdity, and it's like their success has snowballed. It's like there's like a global success. So yeah, it really does work to help build a connection.
So if we're talking, so that's kind of in marketing, and I definitely see the appeal in marketing to stand out and to get that emotional connection with your followers. What about within the workplace? Do different types of humour have different impacts or have different benefits?
Yeah, so I think we talked about the different types. So you've got the kind of the two main types would be the banter, and then this sort of absurd type of humor. Banter is often between just kind of two people. Really, you're kind of building the relationship with just two people. So that is a good way to build relationships, but it's not that inclusive. You're not going to be able to use that in front of a team of people. And yeah, I think the best way really is this kind of this absurdist type of humor. Another type of humor that would fall under the superiority bracket is self-deprecating humor. Now, self-deprecating humor can be great for leaders to appear a bit more approachable and authentic. Again, going back to what we were saying at the beginning about using humor, a certain type of humor too much, some people can use self-deprecating humor too much. You do need to kind of ensure that it doesn't damage your self-confidence at all. But great for leaders. The other kind of way to incorporate humor, and this kind of relates to this kind of strategy to build team cohesion, is story sharing. Now, I mentioned at the beginning about the beast, these unlucky and absurd experiences that we later laugh about. So these experiences relate to those four ingredients perfectly. This is an unexpected moment that has an absurd twist. It's relevant because we all know exactly how it feels for something to go wrong. We all can empathize with that feeling of something going slightly wrong, feeling a little bit embarrassed or awkward. And yeah, it's non-threatening because it's self-deprecating. So these stories are a really great way to connect with different departments, seniority levels, and connect with people across different regions as well. I think you're in, so you have about 20 employees. You would like naturally share these stories with each other anyway, and you sounds like you have a really kind of a good culture, and you use humor a lot. But for a big corporate company who, when engaging in projects that they need to bring in people from different departments and different areas, it can take them a long time to actually connect with each other and kind of build that relationship. It often takes months. So sharing these stories is it's kind of like the ultimate icebreaker, really. It kind of helps you to connect with people. It combines the humor, as I've mentioned. It combines a bit of vulnerability. You definitely have to be a little bit vulnerable to share a story like that, especially at work. And empathy. It's going back to that relevance. We all know exactly how it feels for these for things to go wrong, and relating that to psychological safety. As we know, being open about failure is an absolutely crucial part of building psychological safety. So if we can do that in a slightly kind of more light-hearted way, that's, a lot better it's a lot better way to kind of connect with people. So I think your question was about does that answer your question about the different types? Because
Yeah,
I've
all the
just
sort of benefits, right? Like, yeah, and you talked about there that some of the benefits, depending on the type, is maybe faster time to build that team cohesion and trust within a team. You talked about leaders becoming more accessible to people in their team as well by using humour, particularly self-deprecating humour. I've still got a bit of self-deprecating humour to use because it hasn't affected my self-confidence yet. So
It's true.
I'll keep
You've still got some room there.
I'll keep going.
Yeah.
And what was the other benefit you talked about? So team development and coming together quicker, leadership more approachable. What was the other benefit of using humour at work?
also, I mean, it's the psychological safety as well. So there's research shows that there's a virtuous cycle between psychological safety and humor. So when you are attempting humor, you're taking a little bit of an interpersonal risk. So especially when leaders are using humor, that gives other employees and team members the chance, and it encourages them to use a bit of humor and take risks as well. So, and the more that happens, it's like they feed off each other and creates a sort of a virtual cycle between psychological safety and humor. So, arguably that's one of the main benefits and outputs of using humor. And going back to the different types, I would say if you're using just like primarily banter, that might have the opposite effect, because I think especially if this is going out to HR, they're going to want that they might have experience of inappropriate humor in the past, or they're very aware of inappropriate humor. But just having this awareness about different types, you want to promote this absurd type of humor. Banter is naturally going to arise, but you want to sort of maybe have like an 80-20 rule, where you have 80% you're incorporating this kind of absurd type of humor and 20% is banter. Hiroki Asai was a creative leader at Apple and now Airbnb, and he recognized the power of humor to insulate cultures from fear. Obviously, his teams needed to be creative and innovative, and he used to plan in advance of his all hands meetings how to incorporate humor and comedy, because he recognized how important it was for creating psychological safety. So it's good to sort of plan ahead. It doesn't just need to arise spontaneously. You can plan and think how you can incorporate humor into meetings.
Look out, Joelle. We've got our next all hands in a couple of weeks. So,
as if we don't have enough humour in those as it is.
yeah, we're going to have to. There's going to be planned humour this time.
Oh boy,
spontaneous humour.
Get Dan to plan some humour.
Snorefest.
You're obviously a small team. Do you work with sort of larger corporate clients? Can you kind of, what would be your view into their cultures, and into how they use humor and comedy? Do you see they have a similar culture to you, where you use humor, or is it a bit different?
I think, I guess for different clients, we get sort of different levels of insight into how they operate. But yeah, there's certainly, sort of some clients where like you'll go to run a training session within a team in particular, and you can just see that there's that really good relationship there. They all really like each other, and they do kind of all joke, and it is a very fun sort of delivery, because there is that.
It's the banter.
Yeah, it is the banter. Yeah, but definitely some of that sort of risk taking as well. So yeah, I think and in Australia, I think that kind of a relationship within a team, like within a cohesive team, is probably fairly fairly normalized as long as they actually get along with each other, I guess, and sort of don't hate each other. And there's all the, the corporateness that can get in the way of some of that, and competition and those types of things. But yeah, I think we get a really good feel for when we see those things working well within sort of the client groups that we work with. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lady called Meredith Mara, who was a humour scholar at Auckland University, I think maybe. I met her. We did a podcast a year ago or so, and she's a humour scholar, so she researches humour at work in the workplace, and she was doing lots of interesting research on how people from some Asian countries are then moving and immigrating to Australia, and kind of learning how to use humor to bond with people, and kind of it's that relevance part that there's the cultural aspect where you have to kind of understand and assimilate into different teams and humor is like a huge part of that. So it sounds like a lot of the teams that you work with do use a lot of humor.
And I think sarcasm in Australian humour is a fairly significant element, which it probably is a bit of a cultural difference with other areas of the world. And
it
probably,
is the lowest form of wit.
Yeah, so, and that's, that's us.
Yeah.
We suck. I could also see kind of somebody just executing this type of approach really badly and going, oh, okay, I need to do something funny now in this meeting, and kind of not.
There's a sitcom about that. It's called The Office.
So I think I guess I'm getting at, like, it's important to get the nuance of this right, and I could just, not to bag on HR teams, but you could just kind of see the classic corporate HR as their next icebreaker. All right, everybody go around the room and share an embarrassing story, and kind of getting it really wrong.
Yeah, I think, so the embarrassing stories is a great way to connect with people, and it is a good icebreaker, but there is it's good to have a bit of a strategy around that, with understanding humor firstly, because if there is like low levels of psychological safety and then you just jump into that icebreaker, it might go down badly and potentially even have the opposite of the intended effect. So firstly, just having a bit of an understanding about these ingredients into humor and practicing humor, understanding why it's important, then you get a lot more power out of those stories, and in the way of kind of connecting people and building psychological safety, that sense of belonging. But yeah, I think you're talking about it being a bit cringy and forced, and yeah, it probably could, sometimes have the opposite of the intended effect when it's being kind of used in a bit of a cringy way.
I think that's just unfortunately how lots of businesses operate, is that they don't understand the dose response relationship between a lot of types of interventions or strategies. So they'll go, all right, well, if we can see that this amount of it is good, then we should do more of it, and that will be better, and not kind of recognizing that there is actually a little bit of a tipping point, and then where more actually becomes worse. So kind of the medicine becomes the poison almost.
Yeah. The strategy that I do as well is, it's kind of this instead of just all getting together and sharing excuse me, sharing embarrassing stories in every meeting, it's sort of one kind of hit where people record their story actually on, like, as an audio clip, and then post it on their internal communication channels. And then there's another main rule of MyBeast where you have to show appreciation for listening to their story, and reach out and thank them for sharing, or share a similar experience that you've had. So yeah, I guess there is the bit of a balance to strike between with incorporating human comedy, but Yeah, maybe I think that's a good thing is just talking about humor at work as well, because if you're able to understand what you find, what people find funny and why, then and you start talking about humor and sharing humorous ideas. So you've got a presentation coming up. You can ask a colleague, "Do you think this is funny? Do you think this slide will like kind of land? Do you think this joke's funny?" And you kind of you create an atmosphere where people start talking about humor more. Then you're in a place where you could say to someone, look, I think you can maybe dial the puns down, or dial down the sarcasm, or dial down this. This is really funny, but maybe this part isn't so funny. And then you're helping that person. You're helping to create a better team, because sometimes humor in the workplace is almost a bit of a taboo subject for all the things that we've been talking about: HR, inclusion, fear of failure, banter, and then this other aspect which you just mentioned, too much of like too many cringy jokes or too much of a type of humor. But if we all talk about it a bit more and sharpen our humor skills and tell each other what we find funny and why, then you're even able to get to the point where you could say, look, all that self-deprecating humor is getting too much, all those cringy jokes, maybe you do this instead.
You hear that, Jason?
I still haven't heard you to tell me to knock it off.
Have you not?
I think Jason's going to listen to any of your criticisms about his humor. He's going to just...
No, I remember one time vividly where I took on Joelle's feedback. I was delivering a webinar where I wanted to talk about learned helplessness. And I was going to put devil horns on a famous psychologist.
Yeah.
And she warned me not to do it.
That's true. You did. Yeah.
And I took on your feedback and I didn't. So,
that's true.
Yeah, even though he was
that one
torturing
time.
dogs.
Well,
so,
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has it ever gone? Can you think of a time when it's kind of gone wrong, or you've kind of incorporated a bit of humor in it?
Every day, Jason. Every day.
I can think of a time on a live webinar where Jason used a phrase that was really quite inappropriate.
Hey, it's debatable about whether it's inappropriate or
not. So, short answer, yes. Yes, sometimes it goes wrong.
Peter Kelly got me to jump on a webinar that he was on. Funny enough, he loves me listening to him.
Mm-hmm.
And it was someone else that was hosting, right? And there was a chat function. And the guy asked, how many times have you dropped a number in there? And I mentioned that I was doing that thing that you said is inappropriate. And he didn't read it out. He was reading out people's comments, but he laughed when he got to my comments.
Mm-hmm. Because that was you retelling your embarrassing story and that caused humour for him.
No, I just used that term. I didn't tell my story.
Oh, okay.
I just
used the term, right.
I just used the term.
Right.
And he had a smirk, but he didn't
unexpected
read it.
and absurd, probably.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Didn't expect that, particularly on the topic they were talking about.
Yeah.
But anyway.
We're not going to say what it was, though. So sorry, everybody.
At least daily I fail, but I get back up and I try.
You sure do. You keep on at it. I was actually, as you were talking, Jason, I remembered at my previous work, I would often sort of deliver presentations to like industry conferences and that sort of thing. And my boss at the time really just had no knowledge of pop culture at all. And so I was preparing this presentation, and at one point I kind of had like a list on the slide with like ticks next to them of things, and then I had a photo of David Hasselhoff giving a big cheesy grin and a thumbs up that kind of spun up on the slide. And my boss looked at it and went, "Who's that?" And I chose not to take on that feedback, and I left it in there, and it got a good chuckle from the audience when it popped up. So I was glad that I stuck with that one.
Yeah. I remember you telling me that story actually when you started about inserting these things. And I've seen other people drop in memes and that sort of thing, which I think is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, my stuff is too serious, I think, when I deliver webinars. But
there was another time when I was explaining, kind of explaining chaos theory, and I stuck up a little comic strip of a butterfly flapping its wings and doing an evil laugh, and then there's a tornado across the other side of the world. Yeah. That it took a little while for people to understand what was happening, but then that one had a good laugh as well.
Yeah. No, I think memes are a great way of communicating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we love that IO Psych memes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If you don't follow IO Psych memes, you have to follow IO Psych memes. Yeah.
Yep.
If you know, you know. Yeah. Jason, it's been a really fascinating conversation. Obviously, this is a topic that Joelle and I both are quite interested in, and we practice regularly. Like, it is probably an overused strength in our office, let's be honest. But it's why we like coming to work.
Well, it keeps it fun.
Yeah, that's right. We're getting towards the end of the podcast now, and one of the questions that we like to ask all our guests is, this podcast is about mental health, right? And in particular, how work can influence positive mental health for workers. So I'm interested to know what your hopes for the future of workplace mental health is.
Well, when I think about kind of corporate workplaces and corporate kind of workplace mental health, I imagine a world where people are competing for jobs to work at certain companies, corporate companies, or in certain industries, not because they're well paid, but because they're simply so much fun. Because people are going to work and having that much fun, and they're that fulfilled that they're competing to work at these different companies. I listened no, it was an event where this guy was talking about fun, and he talked about fun as a feeling where you're enjoying being with other people and engaging activities. So yeah, I think my hopes would be that workplaces become places where you go to have fun and enjoy being with other people. So yeah, maybe that's a long way off, but those would be that would be my kind of vision.
It depends where you work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and who you work with. That's important. Yeah. No, I agree. That's what I aspire to keep Flourish DX as, and that's the thing that we have to try and maintain as we grow the business. So, yeah.
So last question for you, which is around, it's sort of to do with words of advice, and I might just reframe this one a little bit. What words of advice would you have for listeners who want to kind of have a go at incorporating humour into their work life?
So have an awareness about those 4 ingredients that I mentioned: the unexpectedness, absurdity, relevance, and non-threatening. So have a bit of an awareness about the things that you find funny, what makes you laugh, and think about why it made you laugh. What was the absurdity? Where is the relevance and the unexpectedness? And then this will help you incorporate more humor into your work. We've talked a lot about humor rising spontaneously, but when you're incorporating humor into the emails or into presentations, you will feel like you're taking a bit of a risk. But just go ahead and take the risk and have confidence that if you think that it blends those 4 ingredients well, or if you find it funny, then someone else is more than likely going to find it funny as well. So, take the risk. If you haven't been using humor, then go ahead and take the risk and just have confidence that someone else will also find it funny if you do too.
Good advice. Thank you.
And if you've been using humour and no one else has laughed, keep going.
Is it really humour, Jason, if no one else has laughed?
Maybe it just needs to be worked through a bit more,
If Jason makes a joke and nobody laughs, is it really funny?
I think in that case, in a serious sense, if that is happening, you're using humor and it's not landing, may just ask someone, what do you, start a conversation. What do you find, ask someone on your team, what do you find funny? When do you use humor, or what kind of humor do you like to use, or when have I used humor, what you have enjoyed, and just start a conversation about it.
That is also great advice.
It is excellent advice. People might be laughing on the inside as well.
This is true. Yeah. And or maybe I'm not going to go there actually.
Look at that.
Yeah, I know, I'm learning.
Well done.
I'm learning. But Jason, it's been really, really fun having you on. It's been a really great topic. Really enjoyed this conversation. Where can people find out more about MyBeast?
So the website is mybeast.life. That's the website address. Or you can add me on LinkedIn. My name is Jason Rawding, Rawding. And yeah, I think that's it. Those are the two places. Or you could email me on jason@mybeast.life.
Fantastic. And I'm sure you'll get some inquiries after today. It's been, like I said, a great chat. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And I hope your conference goes well with the comedians. And keep going with the humour.
Thanks, Jason. Well, listeners, that brings us to the end of this episode. Remember, we do record these over video when we have our guests on, so you can catch those videos on the Flourish DX YouTube channel. We also take snips, the best of the best of these conversations, and put them on the Flourish DX LinkedIn page. So while you're over on LinkedIn connecting with Jason, you can also check out the Flourish DX page, some of the clips from our previous guests, and also connect with Joelle and myself if you want to continue the conversation. But that's it for today. We'll catch you next episode.
You've been listening to the Psych Health and Safety Podcast. To stay up to date with the latest on psychological injury prevention, follow Flourish DX on LinkedIn and subscribe to the Psych Health and Safety Podcast at www.psychealthandsafety.com.